All right. Welcome to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Brodhead. Today's incredible business owner guest is Bastian Bergmann. Bastian, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Thanks for having me, Chris. Happy
My
to.
pleasure.
My name is Bastian. I'm a co-founder and COO of a company called Solsten. We work at the intersection of artificial intelligence and psychological data, and work with some of the leading, most forward-thinking companies globally around audience insights and really helping them understand audiences and their customers on a much more human, much more fundamental level, and create really resonating experiences for them. I used to be in a former life, which really feels like a former life at this point. I used to be a consultant. I worked for the Boston Consulting Group for a number of years across different industries, very focused on digital strategy, digital marketing, audience segmentation work. And after a few years, started my first company out of Berlin, which was an incubation setting, so a venture studio where we focused on AI, machine learning, data privacy, personalization technology. So really, how do you personalize both digital and physical experiences for people without compromising their data and compromising their identity? We spun out about 5 startups in a span of 3 years, which was awesome. All were venture funded. 2 got acquired, one's dead, 2 are still around. So it's a pretty good quota out of 5.
Hey, I like those
And
odds.
yeah, they're good. They're good odds, especially in the venture space. And I joined my co-founder Joe in the pursuit of what is now Solsten a little over 7 years ago at this point. So we've been
Oh,
around
wow.
for a little while.
Yeah. So before the AI mainstream explosion, you guys were doing it before it was
That's
cool.
that's it. You nailed it, and it's really interesting. Like, we've been actually building AI since like 7, 8 years ago. So right about a similar time where OpenAI started. I think they started officially in 2015. So we were just a couple of years later. And it was so interesting because at the time when we were going out after, we bootstrapped for the first year, and then we went out and started talking to investors, and no one wanted to hear about AI at that point. Like, no one wanted to hear it.
That's
And
baffling.
it's that's venture capital
Wow.
to an extent for you. I'm not saying all VCs are like that, but that was definitely
Yeah.
a lot of the what we were getting, questions or feedback like, that sounds really interesting. Can you do this on the blockchain? We're a blockchain investor. We only invest in blockchain right now because that was the thing that was hot.
Hmm.
And now everyone's jumping on the AI train and looking at us and go, so can you guys do AI? And we're like, we've been kind of doing it for 7 years already. So it's just interesting to see the evolutions in the markets. And I think just the perception of what different things are and what different things mean over the course of a journey like this.
Hmm. Yeah. That seems impossible for VCs not to be interested in AI. I have to acknowledge that. I know that's 10 years ago. It doesn't seem that long ago. It's like a lifetime ago in our current iterative, speed of time. Yeah, that's wild. So, in terms of Solston, how did you know this was the move? This was the idea. How did you know this was what you needed to do next?
That's a great question. So I think when I left consulting to start my first business, what drove me out of consulting was I love the work and I love the people and I love the clients. It was incredibly invigorating, great topics. But what drove me away from it was you left the projects and you left the work at the most interesting point, for me
Mhm.
at least, when it got to the actual building. So it's like all the strategizing. I love that part. But then you go like, here's everything in slides to, use that stereotype. And then you give it to someone else. And then whether your work becomes a reality and you can actually see the impact of it is up to someone else. And I was really interested in that part of, well, I want to go all the way. I want to build and I want to create. So that's what drove me away from that. That's my first startup, that venture studio, which was backed by one of Germany's largest family-owned businesses at the time. So it was like It was definitely a startup experience. I had to raise capital from the board and I had to do it all, but it came with the paycheck of being employed by the company. So it wasn't like a true founder startup. You're starting with nothing and you have to figure out how you pay all of your bills. It was more like
Hmm.
um, startup light, I would call it. But it was a really good gradual step for me. And I knew that after that experience, I really wanted to go all in and start something from zero without the safety net and have that full experience. So I was clear on that. At the time, while I was still with that, running that other company, my co-founder, who's our CEO, Joe, we've been really good friends for more than 20 years at this point. We actually met in high school. We've been friends since, known each other for more than, half of our lives at this point. He was working at one of the largest video gaming companies at the time, and he's a clinical psychologist by background. So he was using a lot of the psych methods to measure, human cognition and traits about people to help inform decisions around how you make video games for people, how you can adapt those experiences, how you personalize recommendations in a game, how you personalize marketing for people. He was manually experimenting with that. I remember this. He called me up one day and he goes, I'm making my employer way too much money. This is $1 billion idea. I'm thinking about starting this
Ooh.
company. Do you want to start this company with me? And I think I trust him. I've known him for a long, long time, and I knew we would work really well together because we have pretty complementary skill sets and complementary personalities, but a lot of important overlap in really critical areas and the things that we value and what motivates us and what we care about, what's important to us. So I knew there was a lot of alignment there. And what appealed to me about the idea specifically of using a much deeper, a much more accurate understanding of how do you actually understand the human being behind a customer, a consumer, a user, a player was really appealing to me because at that time and still to this day, a lot of companies operate like that. And even some of the companies that, in the public perception, we all think have all the data, know everything, and they are this like all seeing eye, Meta, Google, you name it. They have a lot of data on us, it's true, but they're still limited to it's either demographic data, so your age, gender, things like that, maybe income ranges, and then they know some behavioral data, what you clicked on, what ad you liked, what post you watched on Instagram, what you engaged with, what you didn't engage with. And they'll know some of your affinities and preferences, like is there certain content you like, what movies are you watching, which all of that stuff is useful up to a certain point. The problem with that is, one, it actually doesn't tell you anything about who the person is because what you actually need to get to is, well, why am I seeing the behavior of my users that I'm seeing or of my consumers? Why are they clicking on this ad over this ad? Or why is someone watching or this movie or playing this game versus this other thing over here? When you're operating off of behavioral data, you only know that the behavior happened. So one, you're always looking into the past. And two, you just know that the behavior happened. You don't know why it happened. And that makes the next step in the chain, if you're a company trying to improve its decision making and the actions it's taking in terms of how do we improve our products or how do we improve our services, or how do we make better marketing, makes this next question in the sequence really challenging, which is, well, what do we do about it? If I don't know the why, the what to do becomes insanely hard and almost impossible to figure out. And now you're back to guesswork and intuition. And what's compelling people's behavior in any environment is our cognition. It's our psychology. It's how we're wired. It's the things that motivate us, our personality, what we value, our social styles, and things like that. That's what's driving our behavior. So if I can make that tangible to companies, I can give them the ability to create a lot more resonant and meaningful experiences for customers and users out there. So rather than force feeding people and recommending shitty content over and over and over and over again, why do I not give you one recommendation where I know this one's for Chris? And I know that Chris will love this and not Chris is going to click on this because I've shown Chris this for the 100th time. And his brain just goes in overdrive and goes, just click the thing for once and leave me alone with it. So how do you shift that? How do you shift that paradigm? And I thought that was such a compelling idea to me because I I have a journalism background. I started writing when I was 13 years old. I grew up in like newspapers, radio, and all this stuff. And the whole media, news, journalism landscape, that whole industry is near and dear to my heart. And there's a lot of things that are wrong with it now in our world, and a lot of things that are not working as they should. And one of the big problems is that they lack a way to actually get important messages and facts and sort of like an objective reality or an objective truth through to a lot of different people. Everyone's operating in their own little echo chamber. And if I want to get back to actual like civil discourse and have meaningful conversations and educate people, I have to be able to open up people's perception to the fact that there might be a reality that contradicts what I'm believing, but maybe that's actually true. And now I'm open to it. And a lot of the, process around how do you get people to actually be receptive to these types of messages? The key to that lies in, well, how do I have to speak to people? How do I have to communicate to Chris versus Bastian versus another person so that quote unquote, I'm speaking your language, which is the layman way of saying, I'm resonating with you. I know who you are and I know how I have to show up to you so that you're actually going to even be able, to digest or be open and be receptive to what I'm putting in front of you. So there was a lot of alignment and overlap with um, just in general, my background, what I really cared about, the things that interest me, and what our company could eventually become and achieve.
Mhm. Okay. Wow. Um, a lot to dig into there. So, what, like, how does it work, and what
Mhm.
does Solsten do?
Yeah. So we provide audience insights to any company, our customers, any company globally. We work in video gaming. We originally come from video gaming. We do work outside of gaming too. So we work with companies like Sony, Electronic Arts, Supercell, PlayOn. I'm forgetting some of our biggest customers. We work with DraftKings, Peloton, Dentsu, the agency, a lot of different like online retailers, financial service providers, really across the board. And the use cases, regardless of the industry, are always the same. It starts with, we want to make a new product or a new service for our current customers or a new audience that we're trying to reach. Who are these people? What are they motivated by? What drives them? And how do we build the best possible experience for them? The other one is, we're already providing a service. We have an experience. We have an existing customer base. How do we get to know them better so that we can cater to them more effectively? And then the third use case is anything around marketing and creating content for people, personalized content. Simply put, how do you make better ads? How do you make ads that actually resonate with people so that your people are clicking on it, they're actually looking at the content, and you're ultimately driving conversion rates. So it always comes back to, regardless of the industry, high level to those three specific use cases. And the way we cater to that and the way we serve those, there's two different ways of going about it. One is, we have built an adaptive psychological assessment. So it looks like a questionnaire, but it's AI powered, meaning remember when, we took college entry exams back in the day, and it's those tests, the test learns about you as you're taking it. It goes, oh, Chris just nailed the math section. Physics is next. We know based on his math scores that we can skip these physics questions and we can start them over, with this question. We've built that for psychological testing, which the only other adaptive tool like this exists at the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota for medical use cases. So when we work with a customer like Peloton or DraftKings, they would expose their existing customers to this, what looks like a questionnaire, and people go through that. And that allows us to, across thousands and tens of thousands of individuals, to understand, well, what are the needs, drivers, and desires of the audience that we have, and how do we separate that into personas? How do we separate that into segments that optimally represent your entire user base, your entire customer base? And now, based on the underlying drivers, how do we best serve and cater to the customers that you have? How do we make a better experience for them? The other pathway to work with us is through our database called Navigator. We've built over the last 7 years the largest psychological database on consumers, literally in the world. So you can think of that system as Google search for audiences. So it's like you can go into this database and any audience that you could possibly want to get to know, you can talk to them, you can get the information on them, and you can create content for them right away. So
Hmm.
if I'm Adidas and I'm saying we want to run a new campaign, and On Running, the upstart out of Switzerland that, I've got a pair and I'm sure you have a pair. A lot of people have a pair of their shoes. They're killing it. So Adidas could go, well, I want to look at people who said On Running is one of their top 3 favorite brands because I want to make a campaign that's specifically geared towards appealing to On Running fans. So I can bring them back into the Adidas universe and maybe get them to buy an Adidas running shoe instead next time, or Adidas apparel and things like that. So it works for those use cases. If you want to go out into new markets, you can separate the database off of demographic traits, etc. There's over 40,000 brands in that database, over 30,000 interest categories, over 200,000 video games. So it's like the world's your oyster with this thing. And it's the first time where marketers, brand strategists, product people, customer experience, user experience folks, and leaders have the ability to get that level of depth in terms of insights into any audience, literally with a click of a button and at their fingertips at any point in time. This type of system has just never existed before.
Hmm. Wow, that's amazing. That's quite an accomplishment.
Thank you. It's been a lot of work. And
So
that's back to how we started this conversation, where you said, well, it's hard to believe that investors 7, 8 years ago were hesitant about, investing in AI. That was part of the reason. This whole concept of, well, we're going to measure psychological data at scale and make it actionable to all these different companies and make that available in an anonymous way. It's just a lot of people couldn't wrap their head around it. It was the world didn't operate like that, back
Mhm.
7, 8 years ago. Now everyone's waking up to the fact, because all brands, all companies, I mean, what's the scarcest resource in today's economy? It's
Attention.
it's you nailed it. It's consumer attention. So the challenge that all these companies have is they have to break through the noise and they have to break through the clutter. So the consumer's pie of attention is not going to grow exponentially. We still work, we still have to eat, we still have to sleep, we have family, and we have our relationships, and we need to spend time on those because they're really important. We should go out in nature. And then there's all this other stuff. So really the battle for attention is about, how do I increase my slice of the pie that is fairly limited? It's not infinite, it's
Mhm.
fairly limited. And the way to do that is, and what companies have realized is, you need a much deeper understanding of who your audience actually is and what they really care about and how to resonate with them. And that goes beyond the superficial, oh, they watch Game of Thrones, let's give them something that has dragons and medieval people killing each other. Like, no, that's not why they watched Game of Thrones. Some people did, but some other people watch it because it's super strategic and, a million other reasons. So that's
Mhm.
kind of where I think there's a big perception shift in people waking up to the fact that how they were operating 6, 7 years ago is just no longer a way to operate if they want to succeed with consumers today.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. We have, so many incredible tools and resources now to improve how we engage. I'm curious, can you share some use cases of how clients have used Solsten to increase client attention for their brand or product in the
Yeah,
past?
absolutely. So I'll start with a use case like 6 years ago already, when our product was nowhere near as sophisticated as it is today. We work with an online retailer called Gear West out of the Midwest. It's the second largest outdoor gear retailer after backcountry.com. So we're selling
Oh,
like
wow.
alpine gear, ski gear, things like that. And they ran our assessment across their email list that they have in customers, like 3,000 people or something like that. And they had a Father's Day campaign that they ran, an email promotion. And their stereotypical idea, like what they thought what their customer was all around like competition. So the framing of the Father's Day campaign that they had always run was something to the extent of, this Father's Day, get yourself the gear to ski like Bodie Miller or something like that. Or insert any other name of like Michaela Schifrin, whatever, like any other name of successful pro skier. And when we ran our psychological assessment for them, and when we looked at the data with them, people weren't really competitive at all. That wasn't one of their drivers. What they cared about was family, relationships, togetherness, and actually creating lasting memories. Longevity was really important. So then the following Father's Day, and this is the same email list, exact same email list, following Father's Day, they had the subject line was, this Father's Day, get yourself the gear to create lasting memories with your loved ones.
Mm.
And the image was a father and a son on a mountain shot from the back with their skis in the snow. Again, same email list, right? 66%, no, actually 3 times the conversion, in increase in conversion from people actually clicking the email and going to the web shop. 66% revenue increase year over year compared to the previous Father's Day campaign.
Wow.
So 3 times conversion rate increase, 66% revenue increase. And all they changed was the subject line, the copy, and the image in their email campaign. That's all they did. And, we have numerous examples like that. That's an online retail example. This works in video games where clients will show personalized offers, and all of a sudden conversion for those offers goes up by over 20%. What we see consistently right now, and especially around marketing, because it's such a challenging environment with user acquisition costs, and marketing budgets are they're growing and growing and growing. Cost per installs are insanely high. All of the ad networks, targeting's challenging. It's just a really challenging environment. If you don't have a lot of money to spend on marketing, you're kind of screwed pretty much anyway. Consistently, we see somewhere between 25 to 35% lower cost per installs or user acquisition costs when the actual campaign has an ad that's informed by our data, and all of the targeting parameters stay exactly the same. So literally, you're just making a better ad, quote unquote. You're changing the asset. And the installs that are coming in are better installs too. So you're actually seeing more retention, more engagement. These people convert better. They make more money off of them. So overall return on ad spend actually goes up, and companies report back to us that somewhere between 10 to 15% overall is the actual efficiency increase that they're getting on their paid marketing budget on those digital channels. So that's kind of like, if you have 5 million that you're spending on, Facebook or Instagram, making those ads, it's like now you have a budget of somewhere between 5.5 to almost 5.8 million rather than 5 million, because the efficiency goes up of what we're able to put into people's hands.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's amazing. So who is sort of the perfect client for you guys, and
Yeah.
how, how do they use this to get the benefit from it? Is it a database that they're talking to, a la ChatGPT, or are they going through the files? What's the experience like?
Really, really good question. So
Thank you.
it's a SaaS environment where we give people access to our database, and it's all dashboard based. So you can browse, you can look at different audiences, you can explore, you can see their affinities, preferences, brands, movies, subscription services, what social media channels they spend time on, video games they play, and a lot more. And then if the full psychology of around 300 traits, anything from what are people motivated by, personality traits, values, social styles, competition styles, communication styles, along with actual insights and recommendation. If your audience scores, let's say, high on a certain trait, let's say fearlessness, they're really motivated by fearlessness. Here are specific keywords that you can use in your copy that are going to resonate with a person that's motivated by fearlessness to this specific extent. So it gives you not just more data, it gives you actual insights that you could take and build on right away. We're actually, since you mentioned it, we're actually working on our own chat product, which is really cool, so that we're giving our customers and users the ability to say, I want to look at charts, I want to see all the depth, or I have my chat window, and the Solsten chat can do all the work for me. So it's like the database is in the background. You don't have to look at anything if you don't want to, and the chat does all the work for you. So it's like what we're effectively building on top of the database is kind of like the ultimate AI assistant to make personalized marketing content. Anything from visual ads, copy, so call to actions, Instagram posts or social media posts, video snippets, creative briefs, you name it. So that's coming actually in a few weeks. That's we're releasing the beta version there, so we're really excited about that. But
Oh,
that's kind of the current experience there. In terms of the ideal client for us, we're industry agnostic. I think what we've seen, it depends a little bit on the team and the type of culture in the company too. Generally speaking, from a title perspective, the marketing team, brand team, consumer insights are our top three, and in that order too. So VP of marketing, VP of brand with their teams, VPs of creative that are in charge of, actually coming up with the creative concepts for certain ads. Those are our power users. They get it. They love it. They use it in their day to day. For consumer insights professionals, it's insanely powerful because they get bombarded from different teams in the organization left and right and it's always ad hoc requests. Hey, what do we know? We're Peloton. Hey, what do we know about Strava users? Well, let's see. We can do some desktop research. We can commission a study. They'll come back in 6 months. And with Solsten, it's like, oh, Strava, hang on. And you go into the system, it's like, let me look at Strava people. So it's a huge efficiency gain. And also obviously, there's a rigor to it that they previously didn't have access to. I think those are the top three. From an organizational perspective, I'd say small to medium sized enterprise. We have a lot of like larger clients too, like Electronic Arts is a big client, DraftKings is a big company. Those are great. The medium sized enterprises, that's really where we hit the sweet spot because there's a lot of desire to be competitive, try new tools, get help, try things out. And there tends to be a greater level of openness, which is really the key to success. I think if whenever, teams and organizations are adopting new tools, there needs to be a baseline of openness and willingness to embrace something new. Otherwise, the effort's going to fall flat on its face anyway. And that tends to be really well. And I think people always ask me, like, what's a success criteria with our clients? And I say, well, when I meet clients, the number one thing that I look for and what I tell people is be curious about who your customers are. Just genuinely be curious to get to know them as the people that they are and not as the data points that you have in your current databases. Actually be curious about the human. And that's a mindset shift. But when people go through that, the results follow very, very quickly.
hmm awesome, awesome. So, you know, with my business, we make videos, we make branded, high concept cinematic commercials, and we'll talk to the client, and we'll be like, okay, who's your ICP, who's your ideal
Yep.
client, and they're like, oh, we know exactly who that is. It's like this person, and they do this, and we're like, okay,
Yep.
cool, and then we go and we do our own research, and we get some more information from maybe some other departments. And it's like that is the opposite of who your
Yep.
customer. Like, what are you talking about? And this happens, 5 million, 10 million, 100 million, billion-dollar revenue companies. Like we've had this experience. So if the client has no idea who their avatar is, how do they stay on track with your system?
Yeah, because the system on our end is a living and breathing thing. So if you're subscribed to our database, it's almost like having a real-time pulse on the global consumer population because we're constantly collecting new data. All of the audiences get updated. So whenever you're subscribed to a specific audience, let's say I don't know, I'm Deutsche Bank and I'm looking at Gen Z globally because I want to develop Gen Z products and I want to market to Gen Z so that they're opening their trading account, their first trading account, not with Robinhood, but with Deutsche Bank. I'm just completely making up an example, by the way. Um, they would be, when they're subscribed to our system, they would know that the Gen Z audience that they have within Solsten, that is the most up-to-date thing that is actually there. So rather than commissioning, Nielsen or Accenture or some of those big companies like BCG. I used to do this type of work. And it takes 6 to 12 months. You pay them $500,000 to $2 million, somewhere in that range, and they come back with 150 PowerPoint slides that everyone looks at, and it's like, it's great. And then it ends up in a drawer, and the business units never leverage any of those insights, and they never actually implement the work.
Mhm.
We circumvent all of that because the insights are there at the moment when the question gets asked, not the question gets asked and then the insights are there when our vendor or the process is completed for us to procure what we need to know. No, it's ready to go. It's there. So I think that's a really powerful thing where the teams are just plugged into that environment. And the same is true with, to your point, their ICPs. If they have an existing customer base, we can give them access to the assessment that we run and then just, gradually rerun it. If you're bringing in new customers, quote unquote, profile them, get to know them. You don't have to do this frequently. It's like once a quarter is fine. Maybe even sometimes every half a year. Semi-annually is fine too.
Yeah.
But that gives people an up-to-date baseline of this is who our customers or this is the audience that we want to resonate with and connect with at all times. So no outdated persona legacy frameworks, so to speak.
Hmm. Got it. So the kind of the first move, the first task when using Solsten is to send out like a mass email or an email to your favorite clients to be like, hey, would you mind filling out this form? And that informs your ICP, which you then extrapolate through Solsten's database.
Yeah, it depends on the
Is
use
that
case. If the use case is we want to, let's say you're an online retailer and your goal right now is we want to drive reactivation and increase repurchase rates amongst our existing customer base. How do we use Solsten for that? You're absolutely right. I would say to them, well, we're going to have to get to know your customers and what motivates them and what drives them first, because that's the target audience that you guys want to drive action with. If the use case is, I am Adidas, back to that example, or I'm Deutsche Bank, Deutsche Bank says, well, who are Amex customers? Because we want to offer a competitive credit card program with better benefits. And they could come to our database and we wouldn't need to run and send out any survey to anyone. They can go to the database and filter the existing database by who are people that have said Amex is one of their 3 favorite things or one of the favorite products that they're using. Because then you know right away that this is core American Express customer base. That's the core that if I'm saying amongst my 3 favorite brands or my top 3 services that I use, if I mention Amex, that that's top of mind for me and that I really care about that product and I value that service. So I'd be core audience. Those are the people in our database. Now Deutsche Bank has the blueprint immediately to look at those types of people and understand who are they, who are the ones that are using Amex, and if we were to create a competitive product, what would we have to include? What are the things that these people care about that we would have to speak to and offer so that we can start taking market share from a competitor?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's awesome. Um, so you have a very interesting and unique perspective on maybe like a macro
Mm-hmm.
development level of like customer preferences. You don't have to mention specific industries or verticals or businesses, companies, anything like that. But have you noticed any interesting macro changes in customer preferences? Like, for some reason, I want to say like since ChatGPT became mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really good question. So we
Thank you.
actually do a report every year that's called State of the Player. And we're in a few weeks coming out with State of the Consumer, where we're exactly looking at those developments on a year over year basis to see, well, how are perceptions and how's the underlying psychology, how's the mind of the consumer or in different industries actually evolving with what's going on. And from 2023 to 2024, the trait that changed the most in an upward trajectory, which was, I think, a really encouraging message because it was right after tail end of COVID. People are coming out of that. altruism increased the most, people's levels of altruism. So
Mm.
people overall became more caring. They wanted to help more. They cared more. They wanted to do more good. They wanted to be of service. And I think that was a really, really interesting message that wasn't necessarily intuitive. If you kind of like, if we all live in our echo chamber, and especially against like the backdrop of the pandemic, I thought that was a really encouraging message, given what's going
Yeah.
on in the world. And we
Yeah.
just actually came out with the new report. And one of the traits that specifically, this is in the context of the video gaming industry, that shifted the most from 2024 to going into 2025 is people's levels of moderation went up. So that means people are playing, people are consuming, but they're moderating their consumption behavior. So it's not this all out, I'm going to spend 8 hours all the time. I'm going to go in the tail, like off the deep end into 4 different games and just sink all my money and my time and my attention into it. People are gravitating more towards bite-sized, snackable, easier to pick up, easier to digest, like drop in, drop out, and I can pick up where I left off types of experiences because it's not as demanding on their attention, it's not as demanding on their time, and it fits more easily into a busier, crowded day to day. And I think a lot of that has to do with the shift of, yes, there's still remote work, yes, there's hybrid work, but we're going back to being more in person. Our personal lives have normalized more. We're seeing family more, we're seeing friends more, we're out more, we're back to restaurants more, we travel more. So that has come with a shift towards, as I said, moderation and people kind of like regulating their consumption behavior a little bit, so to speak.
Yeah, that's I love hearing things like that. And that's a big reason why I try to avoid kind of the mainstream news because it's just so inherently negative and
Yeah.
it's such a bummer. You're like, oh wow, now I just feel bad.
Yep.
And I have this podcast. We produce a couple other clients' podcasts, and we're talking to an incredibly wide variety of
Mm.
people. Incredibly successful people, um, and they have very like rosy perspectives on things. It's very positive. It's very, like you said, altruistic, and I'm just like, this is what this
Yeah.
like this is like my experience, and you're like you're qualifying it, and
Yeah.
it's so I think that's amazing. I would think I don't know, like some sort of like, hey, here's what the data is saying about the state of the world. It's like it's pretty good.
Yep. Yep.
Like,
That's,
don't pay attention to that other stuff.
I mean, you nailed it. I forget what the title of the book was, but Steven Pinker, is it Angels of Our Time? I forget, but I think it was Steven Pinker that wrote that book and basically backtraced like history and looked at the evolution of the world on a lot of different metrics. And it's like,
Mhm.
by any reasonable measure of comparison, we've never done better. Like, and yes,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that the world is perfect. Absolutely not. Like, there's a lot of stuff that could be a lot better, and there's disadvantaged, groups and people, and like all of that is a reality. Absolutely. But
Mhm.
then if you compare today to 500 years ago, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't want to have lived 500 years ago. I don't know about you, but I'm,
I wouldn't want to
I'm,
live like 30 years ago. Well, I'm 40.
yeah,
I wouldn't want to live 50 years ago.
yeah. So it's, yeah, I think it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture, and because
Yeah.
it's hard for us as humans. It's hard to zoom out, and awareness is a skill that we all benefit from developing more and continuously developing it. But it's hard to zoom out and understand the bigger picture, and that goes back to a comment I made a few minutes ago. Um, being open to different perspectives and viewpoints and facts that might contradict your own belief system, and being open to, oh, I just learned something and I'm going to update my belief system, rather than, no, I have to hold on to my belief system because otherwise my ego is going to crack, and I'm going to reject all of the other perspectives that are out there. And again, that doesn't mean like we have a lot of there's a lot of things that need doing. There's a lot of room to grow and still do better on a lot of dimensions. Like the work's
Mhm.
not done, but comparatively, we're doing pretty okay overall.
Yeah, yeah. I love to hear that. Thank you for sharing that. You have such a unique perspective. Okay. Well, we are coming towards the end of our time. We're actually a little bit over. Is it okay if we go just a little bit longer?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. So I have two final questions for you.
Mhm.
I'm I think I'm being a little selfish asking this, but I have to ask
It's your
you.
podcast.
Yeah. Hey, that's a good point. Um, so I did this organically. Just I pay for premium ChatGPT. I
Mhm.
just kind of naturally progressed into it becoming basically my therapist and my coach and my like
Yeah.
sounding board. And every day I've just found myself doing this. Like I didn't watch a YouTube video that was like, hey, you should do this. I was just like, oh wow, this is actually giving me really good advice and feedback and like a great sounding board. So every morning, I'll just hit the transcribe button so it listens to me, and I'll just like talk for like 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, and it'll transcribe everything, and then I send it, and it like gives me kind of like, here's like a meditation you can do. Here's like a somatic healing mantra meditation you can do. Just like things to calm my overactive brain down. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, what could possibly go wrong? And then I think to like, oh, well, Facebook had our data and like tried to destroy the world. As someone who, I don't want to call you like a sausage maker, but you know how the sausage is made. As like a data expert, you know, and then I come to find that I'm not the only person that's doing this. That's actually the number one
Yeah.
use of ChatGPT right now. We all
Yeah.
just kind of figured it out at the same time.
Yeah.
What are the repercussions of sharing this much intimate data with a heartless multinational corporation?
That's a very loaded question. How much time do we have? Hmm. I I'll try and answer this fairly briefly because that is like that's a whole nother TED talk. But actually, I would offer two distinct streams of an answer because one is the repercussions of sharing this data with like the corporation, um, the ethical values of those organizations, and there's that. But also there's this other stream purely around us as humans and our attachment to technological solutions like that and the role that's playing in our lives and the repercussions for us as humans aside from data sharing and data being compromised. So I think that's a separate stream. So um look, I think I'm pro technology. It's it always comes down to when fire was discovered, it's it can be a force for good and bad. Now here's like, oh, we don't have to, we're not dying of freezing anymore. We can keep warm. We can grill our meat. We're not going to die from food poisoning. Also, we can burn down our neighbor's village and steal their land. You could do that. And I think it's a tale as old as time. It's it's about whose hands is this is a technology in. So I think it would be foolish to assume that for-profit organizations, and don't get me like, I'm not capitalist bashing, I'm capitalist, but it would be foolish
Same.
to believe and assume that for-profit organizations will um, elevate the interest of the people over their capitalistic interests as an organization. Their number one duty is to generate shareholder value. That's what these organizations are supposed to do. And they're going to do that. And Meta is a great example of that. If you just look at it objectively as a business, like I'm not a Zuckerberg fan at all, but you got to give it to the guy. What he's built with Meta and that company is just every year delivering and on an absolute tear. Are there off gases to what they've done? Absolutely. Middle-aged men, suicidality rates through the roof, 30% more depression in the Western world, teenage addiction, anorexia. The list goes on and on and on. Have they assumed any responsibility for any of that? No, because there's no consequences to it. And I think that's where you have to start. I think there is a gaping hole on the legislative regulatory side that actually puts measures in place that safeguards people from when they're sharing and what they're sharing, or when they're oversharing, from being exploited. And I don't mean that in a restrictive way where you can't let any of these companies, do any of their work. That's not the point. But the organizations aren't going to be the first ones to have people's best interests in mind, because that's not the hierarchy of need, so to speak, or responsibility of who they're catering to and what they need to cater to. So that's my first stream of thought there. My second one would be, I think for anyone using ChatGPT for like quote unquote therapeutic purposes, you got to be very careful, because there's already been, anecdotal evidence about people developing an attachment to those solutions and then actually getting really misguided advice. And the thing is, nothing replaces real human connection. There's nothing better than going out into nature, being with your friends, and being with your family. Nothing replaces that. And it's easy because we're lazy and technology is accessible and it's just a click away. All these other things I just mentioned are work. You have to find someone, you have to call them, you have to make a date, you go out. It's like, it's work. There's always a barrier. There's a threshold that you have to go through. Versus, hey, ChatGPT, it's like you're there. It's instant. It's that instant dopamine. And ChatGPT is not a therapist. It also lacks the actual understanding of who you are as a human. So it can give you good advice and like give you helpful pointers, but I would always sense check that. And I would make sure that, if you're using that tool, or if, people that are listening out there, that you're not becoming over reliant or over dependent on it, especially not if there's things that are kind of like drifting into an area of what might be an actual medical condition. Like, definitely want to have professionals take a look at that and not rely on ChatGPT out of the ether to give you some form of a diagnosis or recommend treatment plans for you. I would definitely stay away from that.
Yeah, that's very, very good advice. Awesome. Thank you for indulging me
Absolutely.
in that
Yeah,
question
for sure.
today. Awesome. Well, Bastian, this has been a freaking blast, man. Time has just flown by.
Yeah, flown by.
Appreciate you going over with me. My final question for you, it's an open-ended question. You can take it in any direction that you like.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, what are you working towards?
I'm working towards two things. I'm working towards a world where companies understand consumers and users as actual human beings, so they can give them experiences that they will love and they're not being force fed to them. And I'm also working towards a life and a future where I'm leaving behind a world for my kids and other people's kids that's a little bit better than the world that I found.
It's beautiful, man. Very,
Thank you.
very simple and to the point and
Thank you.
powerful. I love it. Where can my audience find out more about you and everything you're working on?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I have a Substack where I post frequently called Technically Entertaining. You can hit me up there, subscribe. It's free. I have to pay for anything. Other than that, our company's website is solsten.io. So SOLSTEN.io. Yeah, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, follow me on Substack. You can reach out on our company website too. Any questions, any conversations, anyone want to have a chat, I'm more than happy to.
Awesome. Well, Bastian, thank you so much for taking the time. You are a supremely interesting and accomplished and talented individual. And, we spent close to an hour, didn't even scratch the surface.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate the kind words.
We'll have to do it again sometime. Yeah, and excited to. I love hearing from someone who has insight or perspective that most people don't. That says like, hey, things are actually going pretty good. Like that's one of my I live for those moments. So thank you for helping me find another one of those.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Chris. Really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
my pleasure. And to all our listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in and keep on growing out there, everybody.